Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me, Dark Moon Doll, for Freeform Dreadlocks talk. Today I want to talk about stereotypes and dreadlocks. It can be freeform dreadlocks or salon locks or whatever locks you have. There's going to be stereotypes attached to dreadlocks just in general. I'll share a few experiences I had with that. They're kind of funny, really, actually. Usually back in the day when I was first, my dreads were really small, like baby dreads. When I say small, I mean really small, like that, little sprouts on top of my head. I would be asked if I had any herb on me. It's funny because back then, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. So anyway, and then there's the other stereotype that people would usually assume is that, I'm Rastafarian, which I'm not. I respect their religion, but it's just not me. I'm not tied to any one religion. I think possibly every religion has something to offer, little bits and pieces. I haven't studied every religion there is out there, that's for sure. I read a little bit about Rastafarianism when people kept asking me if I was one. And yeah, like I said, I do respect their religion. And the people that I've met that have said that they are Rastafarian, they presented themselves in a very kind way. They're very respectful to me. A lot of them would like put their palms together and just kind of bow whenever they'd see me. Especially when I worked in a health food place. There was one time I remember when I was working at Whole Foods Market and I was having a really hard day, and I just was starting out there and I was a bagger, and the customer, there was one customer that came to me and said, "Oh, you must be new," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm new." "Well, one of these days you'll get as good as this person." And there's this older white woman, and the older white woman was just looking at me like she was superior to me. And I was like, in my mind I'm just laughing, because I know what's true. And then right after that customer came, I think it was a total of 6 men, black men with dreadlocks, but freeform dreadlocks, like a lot of them with them down to their feet, some of them to their knees. And I was bagging, getting ready to bag their groceries. And one of them looked at me and said, "No, no, no, sister, you rest, you work hard, we bag this." And they all came over and started bagging, because I had tons of groceries. And they all came over and started bagging their own groceries. And I just stood there like, wow, okay. And they said they were Rastafarian, so that's been my experience. I've had a negative experience once with someone who said that they were Rastafarian. I was walking with my son to the park one day. My son is of mixed ancestry. He's both black and white. If you want to get technical, I mean, he's with both of our sides. I've got the African, Native American, and Jewish. And on his dad's side, there's German, Irish, and Native American as well. So he's definitely mixed, and I think we all are anyway. But anyway, I was walking to the park with my son, and there was a guy just sitting on the lawn, and he was reading a book, and I could tell it was the Holy Pibby, which I read that's the Rastafarians' Bible, is the Holy Pibby. So I'm not saying this is completely fact, but from what I've read, and I saw him reading it, and he looked at me, and then he looked at my son, and he said, "What nationality is he?" And it took me off guard, and I said, "German." Because, like, you got to pick one, right? Which, I don't know which one. He's mixed. And he said, "Oh." and he looked at me, and he just seemed really like pissed off at me. And I could tell, it's like, how dare you, mix the races like that. That's kind of the feeling I got from him. But that's the thing, is like, with all religions, there's going to be all different people believing in that religion, and they're going to translate it in their own way based on their perceptions and how they perceive life in general, and what they came down here to Earth to do, their life's path. However they express themselves is how they're supposed to express themselves. So I didn't really get upset about that encounter. It just kind of like baffled me, because nothing like that had ever happened before. Yeah, that's Stereotypes not true. I'm not Rastafarian, but I do respect their religion and their beliefs. So yeah, and then there's the other stereotype about homeless. That you're homeless. I mean, how long ago is this? This had to be over 10 years ago. We applied for an apartment, and my hair was still like this, only a little bit shorter, so maybe a little bit more offensive to most people. And so we went to the landlord, and we were talking to them, and then there's the landlord's kid on the side. They had a little daughter, and she just kept looking at me and looking at my son, because my son at the time had his dreads too, freeform dreads. And so yeah, they just kept looking at us and stuff. And then her daughter asked me, "Are you guys homeless?" And she just kept looking at my hair, and I could feel that that's why she assumed that. And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Oh, okay." But it's like, these stereotypes are funny, because not all homeless people have dreadlocks. If you look around, not all of them do. And people associate dreadlocks with being dirty and unclean and all these kind of things. Um, I think I think what happened with this is just my viewpoint. If you don't agree with that's okay. I think that once you know Rastafarians were more seen with the reggae movement going on, um, freeform dreadlocks were a little bit more acceptable. They weren't so shocking, you know. And then as time went on, Bob Marley passed away and Peter Tosh passed away. A lot of these great reggae musicians and singers, performers that were in the main limelight, that were like, I guess you have to say, like a role model for people. Whether they want it to be or not, that's what ends up happening when you're in the limelight and you're on television, you're, everywhere. So that became to where people, I think that freed people's minds and made them realize that they didn't want to, abide by, polite society's ways of presenting yourself to the world. So with that, yeah, that in mind, I noticed that all of a sudden, probably towards the 80s, it seems like things just changed, All of a sudden, it wasn't positive to be natural if you were African, or if you had hair like of this texture, at least, without going completely into ancestry and race. But I mean, if you had hair like what I have, in the 80s, it wasn't cool to go outside of your house looking like that. It wasn't, I mean, because people were so ingrained by what they saw on television, me included. And so it seemed like we as a race, you can say black Americans or whatever, African Americans, um, we just bought into the stereotypes of what we're supposed to look like. That we have to be ashamed of our appearance and this hair. And in the 80s, it got really deep like that. And yeah, I wore the Jerry curl and all that crap, and the relaxers during the early part of the 90s, and Um, all of that stuff was horrible for me. I'm not saying it is for you if you're still wearing a Jerry curl and you're watching, and or a relaxed hair and you're watching. I'm just saying this is my experience with it, and I wanted to get out of that stereotype because it wasn't me. I didn't fit into that. That just was not me, you know. And then most people, when they when they talk to me, they assume that I know I am a fan of certain people. Like, this guy came into Whole Foods Market when I was working there. I was cashiering, and they asked me, "Hey, don't you just love Whoopi Goldberg?" And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this guy is just like, he's hyped up on the stereotypes and stuff. It's almost like an adrenaline rush for people to issue forth stereotypes to you. And I'm like, who's Whoopi Goldberg? Of course I know who that is, but I pretend like, you never heard of her? I would have thought you had her album and her comedy and stuff. I'm like, who is that? Can you tell me who that is? And then he explained it to me who it was. I was like, oh, okay, I'll have to look her up. And so then he looked at me and says, you know, and seriously, he's like, if I didn't work where I worked, I would have dreadlocks too. And he had like really curly hair. It's a white guy, really curly hair. It's kind of short. You know, it's cut and it's professional look with a suit on and stuff. I'm like, that's great. I don't know what he expected me to say. It's like he was trying to say, I accept you, and this is the way that I can show you that I accept you. But like, people come at me, not you. I don't know, maybe they do, just like me. They come at me with these stereotypes and just assume things about me. Um, like, I'll share another story quickly, where I was waiting on the bus, and someone asked me, how's your country doing? And I'm like, not so great. We both live in the same country, right? We're both you from the United States or not? I mean, I wasn't born in any other country. And I'm sure he was referring to what Africa or wherever, and I've never